Good morning. This is the public hearing of September 9th, 2014 of the Landmarks Preservation Commission. Chair Srinivasan is here. Commissioner Barron is here. Commissioner Bland is here. Commissioner Chapin
Here.
Commissioner Devonshire, Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Gustafson, Commissioner Moore,
Here.
Commissioner Washington.
All right, Commissioners, we're going to start with public meeting item number 1. It's the only public meeting today, and it's on the green paper in your folder. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness at 383 Lafayette Street in the NoHo Historic District and NoHo Historic District Extension, docket number 15-8323, block 531, lot 20. And this is a simplified neoclassical style store and loft building designed by Gronenberg and Luchtag and built in 1913, and a parking lot with a concrete block wall. This is an application to replace storefront infill, reconstruct the facades, install an entrance canopy, install rooftop mechanical equipment and bulkheads, and to construct a new building on the vacant lot. And this was initially presented a while ago and is back today with revisions in response to your comments.
Commissioners, Olivia Brzee, Preservation Staff. The item is 383 Lafayette Street within the NoHo Historic District, and the application was initially presented at the July 8th, 2014 public hearing, and that was to replace storefront infill, reconstruct the facades, install an entrance canopy on Lafayette Street, install rooftop mechanical equipment and bulkheads, and construct a new building on the vacant lot on East 4th Street. And the comments, Commissioners, your comments at that hearing focused on modifying the design of the storefront infill, as well as the design of the brick cornice to better reflect the historic conditions of the building. And you also asked the applicant to restudy the design of the entrance canopy on Lafayette Street. The applicant has responded to your comments, and Elise Quaysbarth of Higgins Quaysbarth and Partners will present the revised design.
We'll reopen the hearing. So moved.
Second.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Elise Quaysbarth from Higgins Quaysbarth. I will summarize the changes that were made. I'm joined here by Tom Long from NEAD, who can address any of your design or detail questions. This is the existing condition of the building, and as Olivia said, you had a couple of comments and asked us to reconsider them. We had a fourth, which was, remember that you all had asked about the security cameras. We just wanted to point out that in the existing condition, there were probably 16 lights along the top of the building and at the base. And our application for the cameras includes only 4. And we did restudy them, and they are reduced in size from what we originally proposed. With regard to the parapet, there was a lively conversation amongst commissioners regarding the aesthetic of the open parapet as opposed to the deficiencies of the water penetration problems. And so we revised the proposal to include a very small recess. And rather than using brick, which is what the current non-historic condition is, there's a bit of limestone that will set back so that it differentiates between the brick construction and the opening in the parapet. With regard to the base of the building, remember that the base at Lafayette and as it turns the corner at 4th Street was constructed in the 1980s. And the 4th Street elevation had some original fabric, but has been very, very altered over time, and the bricks are in very poor condition. This was the original proposal that included a rather stylish marquee at the entry and a storefront that you really asked us to reconsider. It, at that time, included a very smooth transom, a metal panel, and a very regular rhythm of mullions rather, for the storefront. We have revised the proposal. Parapet as described, the lighting fixtures, or cameras rather, are here, and there's one at the far end of the building, and then 2 right on the corner. The marquee is very simplified now, much more in keeping with the simplicity of the building itself, and also based more on the canopy, rather marquee, that originally existed at this end of the building. The storefront, we actually went back and looked at the existing conditions and the historic documentation and started to incorporate more of those elements in the storefront. It turns out that these columns actually exist, so we're going to use them. And we're going to replicate one at this end. The transom is based more on the historic transom, so there's more texture and detail in it. We eliminated that metal panel that went across. And the windows, we eliminated the exterior mullions so that it gave a more open feeling to the facade. Details, there's a probe to show the top of the column there, the historic photograph showing the transoms and so forth. This is just the other side as it turns around the corner here. Previous detail, here are the cameras, transom detail, and the storefront, current detail. This was the originally proposed marquee, and here's the current proposal. This is a very poor photo, but it is, in fact, the only documentation we have of the one that existed previously. You can see that it's a very simple line. The chair had asked us also to look at other marquees that were in the district. Aside from the one photograph that we have of our building, there really aren't any examples, but these are examples of ones that the commission has approved in the previous years on buildings that are in the neighborhood. Detail of the parapet, and then that's the overall project sort of in diagram form. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions? Yes, Addie?
I just had a question. I just have a question about the glazed panels on the corner, which in your previous design seemed to continue the sequence of the windows above the previous design. I don't know if you have that up. And in this one, completely sort of have another sequence altogether in your current design. There are very thin panels on the right, and then, I mean, all of them seem to be different dimensions. So it's it doesn't continue the lines of the.
It does not continue the lines of the openings above. And in the historic condition, if I can go back to the historic photograph, you can see that the columns lined up, but then there was just a different sequence. And historic, also the entry here is different historically than it is currently, and in the proposal, it's not unusual for storefronts and historic buildings to not actually line up with the building above.
Are there any other questions? All right, thank you, Elise. All right, we can close the hearing. Second. I think that the applicant's recent submission has, in fact, very well responded to the issues that the Commission raised at our last hearing. I'm going to ask Michael Goldblum what he feels about the parapet, because I know that you had raised that as an issue.
Yeah, Michael Devonshire and I were the ones that were referred to
Right.
in the exchange, and I think that the solution is very capable, very appropriate. It does significantly recall the original concept of the frieze at the top, the cornice, without the weathering issues that Michael raised.
All right, and I think the canopy seems very straightforward. There were some concerns about the design of the canopy previously. I think they've gone back to something that's much more historic, and its simplicity doesn't detract from the historic nature. In fact, it, I think, reinforces the historic character. The ground floor storefront area, it seems that they have reworked, and in their presentation today have provided us a rationale that in fact it's very reflective of the historic storefront. And the last change that they made had to do with the security cameras, and I think the security cameras right now are incredibly subtle and very elegant and will not detract from the fabric. Are there other comments or questions or concerns? Any? Yes,
Yeah,
Michael?
I would just want to add that they were very responsive to our comments in the storefront. The storefront is discontinuous, and I think that this rendering kind of makes it worse. If you look at the elevations in the packet, the proportions of the side street are much more similar to the front than they appear to be in this rendering. And I think that the switch of having the butt-jointed glass on the lower level and the articulated mullions above is much more effective in its recollection of the original proportions of the storefront, and that the recovery of the cast iron pillars is really very, very good.
If there are no other comments, then I think we can close the hearing. First, we'll read the resolutions. Michael, would you like to read the resolutions in the green sheet? And it's long.
Alrighty, regarding 383 Lafayette Street, also known as 383, 389 Lafayette Street, 2226 East 4th Street in the NoHo Historic District, the application is to replace storefront infill, reconstruct facades, install an entrance canopy, install a rooftop mechanical equipment and bulkheads, and construct a new building on the vacant lot. I recommend approval, finding that the documentation reveals that the majority of the facade to be in deteriorated condition, and that a considerable portion of the ground floor facades are composed of replacement materials, conditions which warrant partial reconstruction of the facades. That the rooftop bulkheads proposed to be removed are not original to the building, and their removal will allow for the restoration of the cornice and building parapets. That the proposed replacement of the existing storefront infill will not cause the removal of significant historic fabric that may have been added over time. The design of the proposed infill will be in keeping with the historic storefronts found on buildings of similar type, age, and style. That the materials and proportions of the proposed storefront infill will recall the historic storefronts. That the historic cast iron piers at the Lafayette Street storefront will be restored and incorporated into the new design. That replica cast iron pier will be incorporated into the design of East 4th Street storefront. That the restoration of the ground floor window openings on the East 4th Street facade will help return the building closer to its historic appearance. That the continuation of the ground floor fenestration pattern along East 4th Street will bring a uniformity to this facade and will support the adaptive reuse of the building in terms of its interior functions. That the proposed entrance infill on Lafayette Street is a discrete modern intervention that will harmonize with the character of this facade and will signal the building's adaptive reuse. That the materials and utilitarian form of the canopy proposed for the Lafayette Street entrance will recall the historic East 4th Street loading bay canopy. That the proposed work at the roof will not involve the removal or demolition of any significant architectural features of the building. That the proposed rooftop mechanical equipment and bulkheads will be minimally visible in context with both primary facades from limited vantage points north and west of the building. That while the mechanical equipment and bulkheads will be fully visible over the rear facade, they will be seen in context with the undeveloped side and rear facades of adjacent buildings. And that the security cameras proposed to be installed at the corner of the storefront and the building cornices are well scaled to the facade and finished to blend in with surrounding masonry, therefore will not call undue attention to themselves. Regarding the new building, I also recommend approval, finding that the existing parking lot and concrete block wall are not features for which the NoHo Historic District extension was designated. That the 4-story height and overall volume of the building is consistent with that of the smaller scale historic buildings found in this district. That the plane of the proposed building's facade will align with the facades of adjacent properties, thereby reinforcing the street wall. That the materials palette of textured brick, GFRC panels, and formed zinc will harmonize with the materials and finishes of the adjacent building and of buildings found in this historic district while contributing to the building's contemporary design in innovative ways. That the neutral light color palette will complement the buff-colored brick and limestone of the historic building. That the detailing of the facade, which features an interplay of materials, flush planes, and extruded forms, smooth and textured surfaces, will provide a level of depth and articulation comparable to what is found on historic buildings within this historic district. That the L-shaped brick frame at the base and easternmost bay of the new building serves to anchor the building within the streetscape and also create visual transition from the low scale of 383 Lafayette Street to the taller scale of the masonry building adjacent to the east. That the large window bays and formed zinc spandrel panels echo the rhythm of large window bays and spandrels separated by thin piers seen at the historic building and also a characteristic feature of loft buildings. that the proportions of the cornice relate well to the proportions of the adjacent historic parapet and cornice, while providing a visual contrast between the deep frame-like forms and the flat, planar quality of the parapet, and that, therefore, the design of the new building will be in keeping with the character of surrounding buildings and will enhance the special architectural and historic character of the NoHo Historic District and the NoHo Historic District Extension.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, this application has been passed.